nickel and diamond it here again. Today I had a rather unfortunate failure. The motor that actually selects between the different modes for where the air exits the air conditioning system, the HVAC system, that had a failure. We're going to go about replacing both that and the temperature blend door. So they're two different parts. One replacement part number, the new updated one for, I believe this is the actual blend door number. The YH1933 is the updated part number. I believe the old one was 1777. Then the other one is the one that actually failed today, is going to be this one, the YH1881. So there's 3 blend door motors in total. Unfortunately, 2 of which I've had give out at the same time, but it'll be a whole lot easier, I think, to replace both of them. The keys to this process are going to be removing this center console, kind of peeling this trim piece back out of the way, and removing the center console, or removing the glove box, which has tabs on either side that you can pull in, and it just drops down, and that way you can kind of get a hand up and around the top. So with the tabs out of the way for the glove box, you can sort of see up and around the top of the airbox. There's a motor up on top, up here, and there's another one up higher on the left side that we're going to be going after today. This trim piece just pulls away by hand by applying a little pressure at the bottom, and then on the side here, which you'll need to start removing, one of these guys, 7mm. So I recommend using some quarter drive stuff because some of the spaces are going to be really tight back in there. To clarify, this is a 2011 F150 with what they term the manual climate control. So this is not the dual zone climate control. There's some videos out already on those, and I'll put the link to those in the description. The trim panel on the driver's side is a little easier to get off if you take off this gauge shroud first. So you can pop it off here, but there's 2 screws at the top here and here on the gauge shroud, and it'll just pop off toward you. You'll have to kind of navigate it around the gear lever, but this trim panel is just popped in, and once that's out of the way, it'll be a whole lot easier to see the screws that you need to pull off for both sides. With the 2 screws out of the way, the gauge shroud can be popped toward you. It'll pop off of this side, there we go. Just with gentle, even pressure, it'll pop off. And then the name of the game is to try and snake these tabs out from under the dash on either side so that you can get these tabs right here, so that you can get it out from under the dash pad and snake it up and around the gear lever. With the trim panel around the gauge cluster out of the way, this panel literally just snaps in, and you can disconnect the harness right here for the 4-wheel drive selector if your truck has that. Now you can get a better idea for where the screws are that you're going after to start removing these pieces. So you have these bottom 2 that you're going after first, and then the rest of this, I believe, just snaps in. This whole piece of the console, literally, you just tug it and the whole thing, you can see, is quite literally snapped in. Looks like it does have 2 more retaining bolts probably up at the top here. So I'll move the light so that you can actually see that. There you go. So that'll have that one and the one on the other side, I'm sure. So I'm going to see if I can get at those two, and then this whole assembly will slide out and you can disconnect all the connectors at the back. So this airbag cover comes off fairly easily. The funny part is really all you have to do is pull at it. It has some plastic keepers up underneath the back that you can reach up around if you pull the glove box out. I just removed the glove box to make life a little easier, and you can literally just work your way around pulling up these different tabs, and up underneath, since I think this is still technically attached to the airbag, up underneath there are, right there, 3 bolt holes where there's 3 8mm bolts holding in the mechanism, which you see there, and the whole thing should just sort of slide out, and that way you can actually get underneath this tab and pull this out, because it has this lip that you can see there. See? One little lip trying to keep you from pulling off this trim piece, which you need to pull off to keep from destroying stuff and scratching things and making a mess. It's another maybe 10 or 15 minutes added to the job, but I think it's worth your time to not scratch everything up and damage everything, and leave it nice and pretty so that nobody knows you even did the repair, except when you brag about it. This is the one screw that's preventing you from being able to remove this trim piece. Now that that trim panel is out of the way, you can get to this last screw, and this whole assembly will slide forward with very little resistance. So under the trim, under this rubber mat, there's 2 more screws that are holding these 2 pieces together. I may not need to actually have the top 2 screws undone, so I think you can just undo these 2, but because I'm also replacing the motor that's up a little higher, it might be right behind this display. I'm not far enough in yet to be able to tell. With those screws out, this whole unit comes apart, and you can start disconnecting all the connectors, which are pretty much all connectors that only go one way, so you'll just want to be mindful and remember which one looks like it goes to which location. Then the next part is we're going to have to start taking out the screws to remove the factory head unit to get it out of the way, because the motors are back in the dark cavern back there. With the control center out of the way, you remove the 4 screws for the factory stereo. Right there is the blend door motor, which is the one that is clicking if you go to one side of the temperature or the other, and the motor gets stuck because teeth are missing from the gears, and that's the one of the ones that I'm going to be replacing. So I'll be getting the I think that's about an 8mm, just like most of the other screws are, and I think I'm going to use the quarter drive stuff so that I can clear that bar, but it should be actually pretty easy to replace that one. The other one, I think the other motor is on the left side of this airbox assembly, I believe. So I'm going to work on trying to locate that, because I haven't seen a video on replacing that one yet. But that one also appears to have failed in my truck, so I'm going to replace it. So the 2 screws holding in the motor are actually a little easier to access than they look like. You can get to the one screw from this side. The other screw you have to come in from the glove box side, and there's just enough room to fit a tool up behind the round bar. And I was just using a normal quarter drive Craftsman ratchet and 8mm socket to get those off, and actually came off pretty easy. So replace this motor. Note that it does have the red tab connector, so you have to pull that red tab out using a flat blade screwdriver carefully. Then you can actually depress the clip and pull the harness out of the motor, and then swap in the new one, which is this YH1933 part. there's the new part installed, the YH1933 part, and it went into place. I kind of had to wiggle it a little bit to get the splines to line up, and then get the locator tab to correctly set in place, but the screws went back in pretty easy, so no cross-threading or any other issues, which in this case probably really wouldn't matter because it's plastic. But if that motor is the only one that's giving you trouble, and that's the clicking is right here behind the dash, if this is where you're hearing the clicking like in the air vent almost, that's the motor most likely that's giving you the trouble. So that's where a lot of these repair guides end. Mine, I also have the issue with the motor on the other side, and I felt around the other side of this unit, which is the upper vent to vent, so like the defrost to vent to floor switch over here, and I think this motor also lost its mind today. So because it was just clicking incessantly, I'm going to go ahead and replace it, because I'd rather replace both while I have everything completely apart. On the off chance that that one is sort of working okay and this motor just failed completely, I'd rather just replace both and not have to deal with this problem again. That's the idea. For replacing the other motor, this top part of this panel pops off. There's a couple more of those 7mm screws up underneath here that you want to take off, and then this panel will come off. For the floor vent defrost motor replacement, here we are in the footwell. Here's your gas and brake pedal. That motor is, wait for it, that motor is there. Can you see it? It's the thing with the shiny screws. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a pain to reach, but it's not actually that far up. So with the trim panel out of the way, honestly I'm not even sure you'd need the trim panel out of the way underneath the steering wheel, but I got it out of the way so I could find this thing. 2 screws and that red clip, and that motor comes out too, theoretically. There's the miracle tool for this job. That's a 5/16 gear ratchet, and I cannot tell you how handy that was for that particular job. You can only get the ratcheting part on one side of one of the screws, but your ratchet won't fit up in there. So yeah, you're gonna want a ratcheting wrench like that for sure. So I'll see if I can try and get this clear in the video. That white plastic piece, you have to push up on the right side, to the right of the connector. You have to push that up in order to get the splines to line up at the motor's home position, and that's how you get everything to line up so that the motor just slides in. Now I just have to put the screws back in, and with all the contorting I've had to do for this video, I sure hope somebody finds it useful. Now we just begin reassembling all of the bits and pieces, putting the stereo back in and putting all of the screws back in where you found them. So I'm not going to cover too much of that now. You've seen all of it, how to do the removal. And to quote Eric the car guy, since it's about, I don't know, it's still probably 100 degrees out with some humidity and a gnarly storm brewing, I smell delicious. Then again, this was probably going to end up being, for both motors, like a $1,500 bill at a dealer. So really, by that math, saving $1,500 apparently smells delicious. Listen, can you hear the sound? That sound is called air conditioning, and it's amazing. No clicking. Silence is golden. I am really happy with this. This is a job worth doing and worth taking your time to do it right. I did a couple extra steps, but overall, having the air conditioning back and being able to control it, gotta tell you, that's kind of nice when it's 105 million degrees outside, plus humidity and raining, and I'm exhausted from contorting myself to make this video. I don't think it's midnight, but that's what my clock says. And yes, it's actually 92 degrees and humid, so it's not 100, but it might as well be. Whew. I need some sleep. Thanks for watching. As always, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe or dislike if you're one of those folks, and come back for more great content. Thanks.